Hi there, it's September the 3rd and we're continuing our journey through the book of Ecclesiastes, Kohelet in Hebrew, that means the preacher. And we're looking at chapters 4 to 6. Beginning of chapter 4, the preacher seems really down and really depressed, and he's concerned about what he sees happening in the world. And he sees the fact that riches are transient, that we don't get from having much what we hope. It's in fact, he says, better a handful with peace than many handfuls with strife. And so he's saying that getting stuff is not what is key. Getting stuff is not going to give you happiness. In fact, at the end of chapter 4, there's the famous passage about two being better than one, and if one falls down, one can help the other up. And he's really saying that relationships are the key thing, that when we have relationship, when we have connection with others, that's going to help us far more than any possessions that we have. And the Hebrew in chapter 4 actually spills over into our English chapter 5. So chapter 5 verse 1 in English is actually the last verse of the Hebrew chapter 4. And it's saying, as well as relationships, it's key to have a relationship with God, because it's key to be worshipping, to be taking our sacrifices to the house of God. In chapter 5, the preacher is encouraging us to watch our mouth, to watch our words. He's talking about the power of the words. He's saying, don't promise really what you can't deliver. He also goes on in chapter 5 to say that riches are not satisfying. And there's an echo in verse 15 of chapter 5 of what Job says when he says, naked I came from my mother's womb, naked I shall return. And there's this idea that we don't bring anything with us, we can't take anything with us. That riches are not satisfying, they're not lasting. And we can't make plans for ourselves. Everything is so transient. And then in chapter 6, it says that what we can actually have in our hands is better than our wandering desire. That's in verse 9 of chapter 6. Really what the preacher is saying in these verses, in these chapters, is that life is not long. Just having things is not enough. And what really will last is the building of relationships. You know, relationships are the only thing that we will take with us into eternity. All the stuff that people have around them, all the riches they try to pour into this hole that we've described, won't actually meet that ache. Only having the relationship with one another and the relationship with God is the really key thing that comes out of these chapters. Have a very good September the 3rd.